Hello all, this is the part 2 of chapter 8, Human Development. In part 2, we will talk about the following 3 topics. So first, in part 1 of the video, do you remember about Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development? Today, we will first cover an alternative way of looking at cognitive development. And next, we will discuss about attachment, and last, we will cover Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. So first, do you know the name of the person on the left? So he is Jean Piaget. So in part 1, we discussed how Piaget's theory assumed that the cognitive development must come before the learning occurs. So basically putting more emphasis on the children's age-relevant development, and after the development occurs, then the children are now able to learn, such by constructing their own knowledge through independent explorations. However, Lev Vygotsky, the person on the right, he was a Soviet psychologist, argued that learning tends to precede cognitive development. So, basically, in other words, can we be taught by someone who are more skilled about something we're not capable of doing at first? Most certainly, yes, right? So, someone may teach a baby calculus, and then the development of cognitive ability may happen. So we could be self-taught, or we could learn by from others. And that was not necessarily what Piaget thought about. So Vygotsky focused on the role of social interaction in cognitive development. So the actual learning can occur through social interaction, such as being taught or being guided by a teacher who is more experienced, which again will be followed by the child's cognitive development. And he believed strongly that community plays a central role in the process of learning. And because the role of the community may differ across different cultures or countries, he emphasized on the social factors on individuals' cognitive development. So this is one of the main differences between Piaget and Vygotsky's theory. So having said that, which one of these 7 approaches is most in line with Vygotsky's theory? Because we just talked about the role of the community, which can be vary among different cultures or countries, the answer will be social-cultural. So Vygotsky basically attempted to explain our cognitive development through the lens of social-cultural perspective. And the concept of social interaction in Vygotsky's theory is called scaffolding, which literally refers to a temporary structure that is basically used to support work crew to aid in the construction. So it looks like this picture. And you probably have seen it while building bridges or large buildings. But again, in the context of Vygotsky's theory, it is referred to as a process of teachers and others in supporting the learner's development and providing the support to get to the next level. And the key component in scaffolding is that the skilled learner reduces the amount of help as the less skilled learner becomes more capable at solving a problem. Again, scaffolding is a temporary structure. So after the construction is complete, then we no longer need the support or the scaffolding. So we could take it out. So in the next topic, we will discuss about social-emotional development, where an attachment becomes a key component. So attachment is an emotional bond between an infant and a primary caregiver. And research on this topic has become more common in the 1960s, which was when psychological research in the United States was dominated by behavioralists and psychoanalysts, who basically said that the babies become attached to their mothers because they provide food. But again, some psychologists, which we'll talk about now, began to argue that this perspective overlooked the importance of comfort or companionship or love in promoting healthy development. So, there are several classical experiments on attachment, and the strange situation test conducted by Mary Ainsworth in the 1970s is one of them. And as you can see in this video clip, make sure to watch it. Again, the link will be posted on the description page. So in this video clip, you will see an infant will be put in a series of strange situations, such as a caregiver leaving the room, putting an infant alone in the room, and then a stranger comes to the room and tries to interact with an infant. And towards the end, the caregiver comes back and the experimenter observed the process of reunion. Basically how the infant responds as the caregiver comes back into the room. And based on the infant's response to the caregiver, certain attachment styles were identified. So the healthiest attachment style based on this theory is called a secure attachment style. So here, an infant with this attachment style is willing to explore the room as the caregiver is present, acting like a safe base. And they do become upset when the caregiver leaves the room, but that's sort of normal. But they will be easily enthused when the caregiver returns to the room. Another attachment style is called avoidant attachment style. And this is where the infant are unattached with the caregiver and they will explore playing with toys even after a caregiver leaves the room. And a third attachment style is called anxious attachment style. So this is where the infants are insecurely attached with the caregiver. So infant will become upset when the caregiver leaves the room and they will be angry even when the caregiver returns, and it becomes really difficult to enthuse. So this is where it's different from the secure attachment style. So these are the three attachment styles that were originally proposed by Mary Ainsworth. But after further studies, there's actually a fourth attachment style, which is called disorganized, disoriented attachment style. And this was added by her doctoral student, where some of the characteristics of this style includes like overt displays of fear and contradictory behaviors or affect. So for example, an infant may run towards their caregiver, but then they might freeze as they got closer. But there has been some controversies regarding this fourth attachment style, and also your textbook does not talk about it. So we won't go in depth discussing about this fourth attachment style. And probably one of the first experiments, classical experiments conducted on attachment was by Harry Harlow, using monkeys, and it was conducted, I think, around 1960s. And I will post a link, so make sure to check it out. So one of the things that you will be able to see in this video is that he basically examined the differences in how long the infant monkey spends with a wire monkey with the food or a cloth monkey without the food. And as I'm saying monkey, but both of these wired monkey and cloth monkey were fake, like the one you see in this picture. So this is a picture of a cloth monkey because you see the furs around the fake monkey. And he found that the infant monkey spent more time with the cloth monkey even though it was the wired monkey that was providing the milk. So again, this result contradicted with the behavioralist and psychoanalysts who argue that the babies become attached to their caregiver because of the food. So this really was powerful to show that, well, what was believed to be true was not. Alright, so the next theory we will go over is on psychosocial development, which was proposed in around 1950s, 1960s by Erik Erikson, who was a German-American developmental psychologist, but he was also a psychoanalyst. So this psychosocial development theory covers entire lifespan, from birth to death. And it is broken down to 8 stages, as you could kind of see in this figure. And in each stage, there is a theme. And to move on, an individual needs to accomplish the agenda. So it is a big theory, but we will go over each stage. So, the theme for the first stage is trust versus mistrust. So basically, the newborn will need to develop trust with the caregiver. And if they cannot, then they will develop a sense of mistrust. And according to Erikson, consistent care from the caregiver will be critical in developing a trust. So this is kind of similar to the Harry Harlow's video that we saw. And also Strange Situation Test by Mary Ainsworth. The theme of the second stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt. In this stage, a baby or a toddler is striving for their own physical independence, such by doing a potty training, or they might start to verbally express their needs, and being really specific in how they want to do certain things. But the purpose of these behaviors is to be more independent and to gain autonomy. And of course, as a parent, raising a child in this stage could be quite a struggle and challenging. The third stage is about initiative versus guilt. Children in this stage is being curious and wants to be involved and help whatever adults are doing. So a child may want to pour a juice on their own, but maybe ends up spilling it on the floor, or a child may want to help crack the egg open, but instead may drop it. I do remember my kids doing both of these things, but they are trying to be curious about the world and want to feel satisfied by being able to help others and potentially being praised of their behaviors and feeling the emotional and psychological independence. So that is the theme during this stage. The fourth stage is industry versus inferiority. So obviously, industry does not mean getting a job and making money. The job for this, for children at this stage is going to school. So during this stage, it becomes critical for children or adolescents to actively learn and socially interact with their peers and gain a sense of competence and self-esteem. And if failing to achieve a sense of industry, then an individual would feel inferior compared to their peers. So far, we covered the first 4 stages of Erikson's psychosocial development theory. And as an individual begins to enter adulthood, they are now at the Piaget's final stage. So do you remember what the final stage was? It is formal operations. However, even though an individual may enter adulthood, egocentric thoughts may still remain. And can you guess what the next theme may be as individual enters emergent adulthood? So this is kind of time that they're start going to high school and going to college. So the key in the next stage is about identity. So finding about who we are. So identity exploration. So the theme of the fifth stage is identity versus role confusion. During this stage, an individual attempts to develop a sense of self and personal identity, and they may start thinking what they want to do in their life. And because egocentric thoughts may remain, this may create a parent-teen conflict. And a side note, as individuals decide what they want to do in their life, gender roles play a significant role in this process. So have you ever heard because you are a female or a male, you should act, think, feel in a certain way? Or when exploring your major in college, because you are a female or a male, you should choose, for example, engineering, education, could be psychology, or nursing. So according to the gender similarity hypothesis, females and males are similar on most, but not all psychological variables. But then, why are there significantly more men majoring in STEM fields? Or women majoring in nursing? Does this mean that men are generally smarter when it comes to engineering, and vice versa for nursing? No. This disproportion in gender comes from expected gender roles, and it does come with a cost. So one cost to men is that they might believe that they cannot be caring even in their role as a father. And among women who violate the stereotype of being nice and caring, they can be penalized in hiring and evaluations. I've heard this multiple times. So the overinflated claims of gender differences do cost in many areas of our lives, including career exploration. Alright, so going back to the Erikson stage. So this is, I think, the sixth stage, and this is on intimacy versus isolation. So the goal in this stage is to form intimate relationships. Otherwise, according to Erikson, they may develop a sense of isolation. So that is in the 20s and 30s. The seventh stage is on generativity versus stagnation. As individuals enter in their 40s and 50s, the major theme becomes assisting and mentoring the younger generation in developing and leading useful lives, such as through family and work. Otherwise, according to Erikson, they might feel a lack of purpose. And finally, the last stage, which is integrity versus despair. This is when reflecting on what they have done in their lives, an individual may feel a sense of satisfaction or a sense of failure. And hopefully, we would all able to say that our life was good at the end. Alright, so that is all I have for Chapter 8 on human development. Again, if you have any questions, take advantage of the Q&A on discussion board on Canvas. Thanks and take care.